Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. We hear a lot about the so-called two Detroits. The downtown area is growing rapidly, but the rebirth of the neighborhoods is occurring at a much slower pace. Now, the Hudson-Weber Foundation is responding to the changing need of the city by shifting its focus from downtown to the neighborhoods. The new funding strategy centers on creating opportunities for all Detroiters to share in the city's prosperity. Here now to talk about the new approach is the president and CEO of the Hudson-Weber Foundation, Melanca Clark. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And of course, I have to disclose up front that I am a board member at the Hudson-Weber Foundation, so I'm one of the people responsible for bringing you here to Detroit. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for that. Let's talk about this new direction. It does coincide with your leadership of the foundation. You've been here.
A little over a year.
About a year, and you're putting a real mark on the foundation's work in terms of just shifting that focus. It's not a new focus. I keep saying it's just it's a turn.
Right. It's certainly it's building on the legacy of the foundation, and this is a foundation, of course, that has roots in the city, just the origins of the foundation that go back nearly 80 years. So the overarching mission is improving the quality of life in Detroit, and I do think that one consistent thing about where the foundation has been and the strategies have changed over time, as they should, because the city has changed over time. But there's been this consistent and hopeful voice around what the future of Detroit can look like. And that's sort of coming into the foundation. That's what I knew about it, and I'm sort of proud to build on that legacy. And we're really in a place now where we want to achieve sustainable and broad-based prosperity in the city, because that's what's gonna.
I mean, that's the trick, though. I mean, right? I mean, I feel like the philanthropic community has been super involved in investing in the growth that we've seen in downtown and midtown, and that matters enormously, and we can see really tangibly what that is. It's a much harder trick, I think, to get out into neighborhoods where you don't have the infrastructure that we had downtown and midtown. You don't just have to create jobs in empty places. You have to invest in people, and human capital is a much trickier dynamic than buildings.
It's a challenging task, but it's critical. And I think, as you think about strategies around economic growth, which are focused on bringing businesses in and growing the number of jobs and development in downtown and midtown, that is critical. That's the engine of the city's growth, but it's of course it's necessary but not sufficient.
Well, it's disconnected from these other things.
And so that opportunity piece, as you say, is what we need to grow the pie, but we need to be really intentional about how that pie is being distributed. And right now, as you well know, we've not achieved that at all. And so, I think a couple of exciting things are happening, though. So of course, I get to come in after there has been progress that you can see and feel in downtown and midtown. In fact, that's part of what attracted me to want to come to Detroit, because you can sort of feel the excitement that's happening here. Doesn't mean the work's done. The recovery is fragile. But it is, sort of a place to stand upon. Of course, there's lots of capacity in the city, lots of energy. And I think that, as we have talked about, the way we're going to inform our investment approach is exactly around, this challenging piece, but it is empowering human capital. Thinking about what are the barriers to progress for residents, which, could be looking into workforce development strategies, wealth attainment and the like, to make sure that they're able to participate.
One of the things I think is really difficult in making that transition as a foundation is geography, right? It's such a big city, and there are so many places that are underinvested, and so many places where there is no investment in human capital at all. So, talk about the process of trying to identify how to make a difference without just, you could send dollars all over the place. How do you bring focus to that?
Right. So we certainly need to be strategic as we think about place-based investments. So, the foundation, I think, is known particularly for investments in place for making safe and vibrant neighborhoods. That's the work that happened in Midtown, fantastically successful. And I think that as we now have this geographic flexibility, to your point, we are going to have to be disciplined in how we move into those places, move into different neighborhoods in the city. We can't move everywhere all at once, although there's an important caveat to that I'm going to come back to. But we need to think about who are we. We're not isolated here, right? So we have to hold hands with others as we move into different geographies, and that's going to be key.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and part of what's informing our strategy too, is really lifting up first, and this is all related, but kind of what are the systemic barriers to opportunity?
Yes.
And those don't necessarily need to land in a particular neighborhood. In fact, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
That you are you're pulling levers that are going to have an impact across a wide geography. And we definitely, I have a policy background. Before coming to the Hudson-Weber Foundation, I did policy work both with the federal government and in nonprofits. So big believer about the change that you can see pulling those levers. And so we're going to be really deliberate about that area of work as well.
Yeah. What about balance? I mean, Hudson-Weber's deeply invested in things in Midtown and downtown. Does shifting the focus mean walking away from those things?
So we're not, as I said, we're building on what we're doing, and we're cognizant of the both and piece, and also, to take Midtown as a great example, as some people have said, the 30-year overnight success story. But the reality is, there's a ton of concentrated poverty within that community.
Absolutely.
And not only that, but certainly as we think about, so it's sort of a both and. There are concentrated poverty that's existing there, but also lots of opportunity in terms of anchor institutions where the jobs are. There's transportation and the like. So I wouldn't want our work to leave Midtown.
Yeah.
I think that we have to, make those linkages in a really deliberate way. And so the work might look different, but
And I feel like that's the challenge that the government here, local government faces, right? It's not just moving to think about the neighborhoods and think about the problems there. It's finding ways to leverage the things that are happening in downtown and Midtown so they help make the neighborhoods better, drawing those connections. And that's a really hard thing to get people to accept or think about, but it's also, I think it's a harder thing to do.
Yeah, and I think all of that is right, but I do think that building on, and this is something that, that our foundation and others have really focused in ways that they leverage their dollars, is making those linkages, building on the relationships that exist, carrying some of that learning to other places, and then using that also to bring people together.
Yeah. Your background coming to Detroit is really interesting as well. I want to give you a chance to talk about especially the work you were just immediately doing in the Justice Department.
Yeah, it's been a probably not a straight journey.
No.
Tried a bunch of different things. But most recently, very most recently, I was with the Justice Department working at the Office of Community-Oriented Policing. I landed there right after being at the White House working on criminal justice policy and the like. And it's actually a little bit ironic, when I got to the cop's office, I said, oh, okay, things are going to calm down now. And Ferguson happened in Baltimore. Right? And we were very much the administration's landing place for developing the administration's response to the national conversation that was happening around policing.
Really important work, but also quite relevant in, I think, coming to a place like Detroit.
Indeed, yeah. And I'm happy to sort of carry those experiences and learnings to what's happening here. And as you know, the Hudson-Weber Foundation also has a safe and just community portfolio.
Absolutely, yeah, very important. Okay, thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.